Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome as you start coming on in. If you're catching us live, hey, what's going on, everyone on Substack, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube? Hope everyone's having a decent day today. It's Palantalk here on Banner and Backbone, and I'm Nick Paro, founder here of Banner and Backbone, joined by my friend Shane Yirak of Banner and Backbone and independent geopolitical analyst over at the Firebrand Project. Shane, before we get into anything today, how are you? Hey, everyone in the audience. Hey, Sherrod, what's up, brother? I see you
Hey,
in
there
there.
you go, Sherrod in here. Very
Yeah,
nice.
we got Sherrod Swaney of Centered America in there,
Good,
in
good
with
day
us.
for you
Hey,
to
what's
stop
up,
by.
Paul?
I got
Yeah,
lots in it for you, Sherrod.
it's
Lots
going to
of
be a day for you to stop by. And
yes.
everyone smash that heart as you're coming on in here. Shane, how are you, brother?
I'm good. I'm good. It's Monday. And we had a nice weekend. I've spent, the last week I was telling you before, really in the weeds here, kind of figuring it out, and there'll be a lot of interesting information to share today. I've got the basis for quite a few articles. Sometimes you just kind of need to go down the rabbit hole to find the information you're looking for to put the pieces together. And so I've got a little bit of that information for you guys today. Nick's got some information he wants to talk about. We want to talk about that as well. It's all very pertinent and relevant. And it's like you could also say, why am I constantly talking? Why are we constantly talking about the Iran war? It's because it affects literally everything, including this whole thing, the whole origin of this show. It's all connected. That's the one thing that we have a tendency, I think, to maybe let slip sometimes as people, is that, there's not usually one trigger for one outcome. Very, very rarely is it singularly cause and effect. It's usually cause, clusterfuck.
Yeah.
And so,
Yes.
that's why it's important we have these conversations. So I am looking forward to this conversation as always. It's good to see Nick, and I'm happy to share what I know with you guys, and share what and get Nick's feedback. And I want to hear what Nick has to say. This is one of my favorite days of the week,
Yeah.
which is crazy because it's Monday. So with that said, yeah, man, how are you?
I'm good. It's been a busy weekend. My folks are in town, so we're
No.
getting to see my parents. They're doing some stuff in the area. They've got work they're doing. We're all building some new houses and trying to move on to some property. So we're um, excited to have them here to be able to start and get into the weeds for them. But I'm doing all right. Weather is being weathery, so things hurt.
Hot tornadoes.
It's hot. No tornadoes right now. It's really hot. We have not had a lot of rain. We did finally get a little bit of rain over the weekend, last night, and it's rained a little bit today, but nothing major. And we definitely need more. We've been on water conservation for the last like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's
they
tough
got
out
enough
there.
water. They got enough water and power in places like Gary, Indiana, to power data centers, but not provide water or electricity for the Black community. That's been heavily Black neighborhoods that have been out of power for like a month. Um, you know,
Really? Really? I haven't heard
yeah.
that one.
Oh, you
But
haven't heard about that? There's a segment of Gary, Indiana that is still out of power, and it is the predominantly Black areas that are out of power and out
hmm,
of services, whereas all the other areas around there where it's more predominantly white, they all have their power back. Um, and if you don't think that is economic racism, then you're living under a rock. Um,
ain't that the
but
truth?
yeah. So racism is alive and well, y'all. And we see that every day. It's fucked up. It's
Yeah.
fucked up what's going on there.
It's
And
all fucked up, guys. It's important to say it, not let it go unsaid. It's all fucked up. They're still putting our neighbors in concentration camps. They're still basically just destroying your savings by manipulating the markets. They're still taking away your grandchildren's future by recklessly endangering our environment and the planet. They're still doing all of the things they're doing. And we still have to talk about all this other stuff. Now, when we say these things, when we talk about these bigger picture things, it's important you understand why this is happening to you, because there's things that's bad, but it wouldn't be this bad if they weren't making it worse. So you know where the different triggers are coming from, because those people not having energy in Gary and is attributable to the shortage of energy and the increased cost of that energy that is being driven by the global energy crisis that is being worsened by these companies experiencing higher and higher and higher energy prices, paying that premium, whereas cities and other places might not be paying that premium, which allows things like what's probably happening in Gary to happen. Now, I can't say with any certainty. I will be the first to say I'm speculating, but I would say that it generally tracks that the decisions being made right now in the Middle East to continue to do what's being done. Let's not forget that to enforce a blockade, you need oil, you need fuel. Well, that's coming out of our domestic supply. And that is going
We're at a
right
40-year low right now. We talked about that last week. We're at a 40-year low of oil reserves in the U.S. And it's going to get worse, which is why they're opening up more land, more of our land for drilling, for private companies to just drill and decimate, because we're running out of oil that we get from overseas, because that's where most countries get a lot of their fuel from, and fertilizer, plus all the like we're now selling horses to other countries for their meat. I don't know if you've been watching that one either. We sold off a whole bunch of horses. Way. It's part of Project 2025. And because
when was horse meat part of?
Oh, that's part of the Project 2025, is to sell off a bunch of the horses that live in the U.S. as
on our public land
sales.
The wild horses, just sell them for
meat sales. And now
fuck?
we're getting an influx of foreign ground beef from other nations where
it doesn't track. Horses? Is that what's happening?
We might be
grinding up fucking horses and saying it's beef, because I wouldn't even fucking doubt it for a second. I wouldn't even doubt it for a second. I wouldn't doubt any of this shit.
We don't have controls, because all of this was part of Project 2025 to decimate our food safety and our food supply chain. And then because the Strait of Hormuz is closed, we've got things like fertilizer up.
How about Mandeb too?
Yeah, the prices are up out the roof and through the roof right now, which means our cattle farmers are being decimated. Our corn crops are being decimated. Our workers who run these fields, whether it is the right choice to use migrant workers or not, many workers are migrants who work in farms. They get permits to do it too. They come here legally and they pick our food, and now they're gone because ICE is just detaining people and just throwing them into prisons. And we've got flock safety cameras all over the country. I put out a video on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok this morning talking about the 120,000 flock cameras, roughly 120,000 flock cameras that are around in all of the US, and how they are using those for their new OS integrate AI-driven operating system that allows Flock to track individual person movement without the need for a license plate or a suspected crime. So Big Brother, but worse, is what we're talking, like Minority Report stuff. And there's no oversight. So I'm going to drop the link for those who are on Instagram. I am trying to get this video as many views, likes, and shares as possible. So if you are on Instagram in any way, I'll drop it here in the chat. Please go hit that link. Actually, I'll drop it without all the extra UTM sourcing stuff, so it's easier to read. Is go to that link, y'all. I'll even put it in a QR code that talks about the flock safety stuff. But I wanted to, we're going to get into some
really quick
headlines here in a second.
Your earlier statement really quick. This is just
absolutely bolster the shit out of me, man. You know I love it when you bolster me.
Yes, I do. I love that position. So talking about the arresting of and detaining and processing into concentration camps of those people who get permits to come legally work in the United States, like no other place, particularly here in California, where they recently took my childhood gardener, the guy who's gardened my parents' house for years and years and years. He's now in a concentration camp somewhere, probably shuffled around the United States. But most importantly, in California, they've been raiding these farms. So I just want to take a minute, and on top of all of these things they're already doing, disrupting the food supply, I want to just go ahead and give you guys from the California official data, the percentage of U.S. food supply of fruits and nuts. We provide over 75% of the fruits and nuts for the United States. Vegetables, official sources say anywhere between 33% and 50%. Milk and dairy, we are the top dairy producing state with 20%. Almonds, pistachios, walnuts, pomegranates, 100%. Damn near 100%. Rice.
California is one of the largest producers of food in the world.
And everyone hates us. Why?
Yeah.
Why do you all hate us?
California feeds the rest of America. Why do y'all hate them? Because they're doing it? Because they actually take care of their farmers
because we have
for the
civil
most part?
rights? Because we are an integrated community? Because we get along? What is it? Right?
Yeah. California has a higher GDP than almost every country in the world. If California were to decide to secede,
you're cooked.
The fourth largest economy in the world would be its own nation right away.
We're on the ballot. It's on the ballot for 2028, to be clear. Secession did make it on the ballot for 2028. And I'll be the first to say there's a lot of Californians, a lot of them, who are not having a good time. We have to
do that. I don't want the union to break up.
I don't want that either. But my point is that it is on the ballot. It is something that their actions, especially earlier on when they were literally running around our state, pulling people off the street, beating us.
Which they're still doing.
You have to ask the question, is it really that crazy when you have a state that is so self-sufficient that we could be our own country, that when we're being terrorized, we don't consider that option. And that's something to consider. I'm not saying it's going to happen. It's a low probability, but it's there.
Yes. And it's because we've taken a broken system and we've broken it more. The problem is we need less talk of secession and we need more talk of rebuilding from the ground up. I don't want states to secede. I want our 50-state union to continue. And I want it to get stronger. I want it to be rebuilt in a way that is not based on white supremacy, that is not based on hurting people, that is based in solidarity of human rights and the progression of human rights.
Absolutely.
And where we don't have people like Hakeem Jeffries meeting with Jared Kushner in private, who is a U.S. citizen and not a diplomat and has no diplomatic presence in the U.S. because he has never been confirmed by the Senate as a diplomat or a representative of the U.S., yet he is the one defining foreign policy, which makes him illegally in that position and can be arrested for doing this without any Senate approval, because U.S. citizens cannot barter on or broker negotiations for the U.S. without being approved by Congress. And so Hakeem Jeffries, you having private meetings with Jared Kushner that people are finding out about, there's a reason people hate corporate Democrats. And I'm going to use the word corporatists because that is a section of the party that needs to go.
Yes.
I want a broad coalition in the Democratic Party. I want the broadest coalition possible. And I said it on Threads and all across my socials, but people got pissed on Threads because they hear the word corporate Democrat and they get mad because they're corporate Democrats. Is corporatism is capitalism and it's fascism later is what corporate Democrats want. Republicans, specifically MAGA,
fascism
but Republicans as a whole want fascism now. Corporate Democrats want fascism later. Progressives and the rest of us don't want fascism at all.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
It's pretty simple.
And yes, there are progressives who are now primary or are now endorsing the corporate candidate who beat them in the primaries, because that's what you're supposed to fucking do. Because after the primary is over and whoever won, that's the person on the ticket who we need to have win. Because we can't have Republicans in office because the fascism later group, we can keep beating them down, but we have to have as many non-fascists possible. The problem is we can't have people like Hakeem Jeffries, who ran unopposed, sit in a fucking seat
like a dude,
and be the possible next Speaker of the House. Like, he can never be the Speaker of the House.
No,
he can never have that privilege.
Let me help. Let me and almost give you guys a little bit of balance on that, right? You have the corporate Democrats, but we're seeing democratic socialists, proud democratic socialists here, actually take important primaries, like in the Senate, and in other
the Senate in Florida.
Yep, Florida of all places, Senate in Florida. I mean, we're winning all over the country. Whether that is, I have a democratic socialist that's been endorsed running for the mayor of my city. There's democratic socialists that could possibly sweep the entire band of local cities here in California. And keep in mind, a city like this in California, it's probably the GDP of the city I live in is probably the equivalent of like fucking the capital of several states, right? These are big places. There's a lot of power, a lot of money here, and it matters that democratic socialists are involved. And to Nick's point with the coalition, there's going to be corporate Democrats. Some of them will win. The importance is that if you have democratic socialists, you now have a democratic coalition. It is no longer a blanket Democratic Party. You have pressure within, and the Democrats are going to see that wave. They're going to either get on it or they're going to be pushed out. And that is going to be one of the most important things we're seeing here. It's why Trump is posting shit, calling all of our primaries hoaxes and things like that, because
it's why you see the word communist come out. Nobody here, especially on this platform, is a communist.
Absolutely
not. Communism doesn't work on a broad scale. We have seen that through history. Communism can work on a local level in a small scale environment, but it does not work on a national level because it turns into authoritarianism. That is, every communist government in the history of communist governments, which would be the USSR to Russia and China, those two governments, the most powerful two superpowers, would be dictatorships. They're communistic dictatorships or oligarchies. That's what it does. That's what communism does. On a definition wise, communism, yes, would be a left-leaning idea, if you wanted to put it that way.
Yeah.
In practice, however, communism is authoritarianism by far-right lunatics, because regressive fascism and authoritarianism is a right-wing ideology. Yeah. Because that's what it That's how it has been used. It has been used to oppress. So let's talk about oppressive governments and what's
Yeah,
going on
let's
around the
kick
world,
it off, Nick.
because the
We got a
U.S. is
couple articles
shifting
for today.
into an oligarchic dictatorship. An elected oligarchy and dictatorship is what we're gearing towards. We're also hurting ourselves around the world because we started, as this episode is, the wars of choice are raging on. Well, yeah, we entered a war of choice in Iran, and it's having some pretty downstream serious consequences. One of those is, and I've got two ground news headers from today that I wanted to go over. One of those is that we talked about last week also, was the US started pulling back on, Trump threatened to pull back and told the Pentagon that we're going to lessen our exercises with South Korea to appease dumbass dictator Kim Jong-un of North Korea, because we don't want to scare him. We don't want to hurt his feelings, because Trump has a good relationship with dictators. So the U.S. has canceled a marine drills in South Korea over the Iran war related force constraints, because we're moving all of our ships out of the Pacific, because we have lessened our presence in the Pacific. We don't have a carrier group in the Pacific right now because the USS George Washington is on its way to the Strait of Hormuz to replace the USS Abraham Lincoln, which has been at sea for over 260 days, with over 210 days now at sea without being at port in any capacity, with terrible conditions on board, with service members threatening to throw themselves overboard. So we are now pulling back our South Korea training exercises. We do those as a presence. We do those for a reason. Yeah, they're kind of expensive. I'm not going to disagree that South Korean stuff is not expensive. The Korean War is still going.
Yeah,
people forget that it is an active war zone in Korea. It is a deployment to Korea. You don't get a deployment badge. You don't get a deployment patch when you go, but it's a deployment when you go to Korea. You enter a hostile war zone. And the U.S. is now pulling back on our South Korea drills because our forces are being sent to the Middle East for a war of choice that is not going to go away. Economic pressure, the only way we can continue enforcing the economic pressure is if we continue to enforce a naval blockade against Iran and Oman at this point, because, we've threatened to blow their asses up too if they don't do what we say, because that's all we are, is we're just bullies with a big stick. And so we're now canceling exercises. We're canceling drills that are useful to create presence and security for South Korea, because we use these drills to train their service members. Many of their service members, actually, basically the entirety of the South Korean army is trained by the U.S. military. And they're a really good force because they're trained by some of the best of the best.
Yep.
And we're going to make our ally less safe, which emboldens not just North Korea, but it emboldens Russia. It emboldens China. And China is going to, at some point, attack Taiwan. Taiwan has approved one of their largest defense budgets ever. For data constraints, so and if they lose cell coverage, out of South Korea and lessening our presence in the area has additional downstream ramifications, not just for South Korea. And if we make South Korea less safe and the Korean Peninsula less safe, that emboldens China further.
Yeah.
That lessens the safety of Japan, who cannot have a standing military because of World War II.
For now, they're very close to
overturning. They're very close to the date when they can start having a active non-defensive military, which I think all countries should only have self-defense militaries and non-aggressive forces at this point, because nobody needs to be trying to seize land from another country. That's fucking stupid.
Yeah,
Like,
we don't need to be
we're
annexing
all we're big enough as people now that we can talk it out. Like, we don't have to seize land from each other. We can just talk. We can make agreements. We're adults. We can
I
fucking
always
act
said we
like
could
it.
use sports to settle disagreements. I think we should use sports. I think that you should have to go and
Why?
play.
We would lose everything unless we had the women's teams out there. We would lose everything.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I was thinking, you know, like we could do Quidditch. And I really like Quidditch, where since we can't actually fly, it's a bunch of people running around on broomsticks. I played Quidditch in college. Little side tangent, and it's super fun. Go and play.
There was a Quidditch league at my school too.
Yeah, go and play some Quidditch. You never know. You might be surprised. And
that being said, J.K. Rowling is a huge
horrible person,
transphobic asshole. She's just a horrible, horrible human being, and so fuck her.
Fuck her. But good story, and I think it's I think
there's a lot of veiled racism in that story, so it's not actually really a good story.
I always read it as a cautionary tale. I think that there's different ways to always interpret any work, right? And so it's the same thing. Like, there's a bunch of artists who I really liked that I listened to. Their music makes me feel a certain way, makes me feel good and happy, and they're bad people. And I still listen to the music because
I mean, it's worth reading the books. It's worth reading the books, but you have to also read it with a lens of there's a lot of racism in this book, in these books, and you have to accept it and be willing to learn from it. Like,
yes, I agree.
Anyway, getting off topic on here. The next one, this one is going back to what we were talking about with ICE and with just immigration being out of control, because there's no accountability and no one's going to stop them, is a U.S. Navy sailor who is on the USS Lincoln, Joshua Aviles, who is on the USS Lincoln right now. His father was arrested in Key West. And the response from Luis Manuel Aviles has been arrested by Border Patrol in Key West, Florida, and the Department of Homeland Security stated on Sunday that, quote, having a family member in the military is not a free pass to violate our nation's laws. Joshua has been aboard the USS Lincoln for over 260 days at this point without a break, working on average 12-hour days, because that's roughly minimum that you work. And he hasn't been able to fucking come home. And he's going to come home to his father being arrested and in ICE custody. This is the parent of a service member who is actively serving our nation.
Do we know what
his father has been in the U.S. for 19 years? This is a civil offense. I want to make sure people really take that part of this home. We are detaining and putting people into concentration camps for civil offenses. Crossing the border illegally, in quotations, is a civil violation, not a criminal violation. It is a civil penalty. We're throwing them in fucking concentration camps and warehouses.
We're not joking. There was investigations into Alligator Alcatraz. People were in cages.
They still don't know where all of the people are from Alligator Alcatraz.
1,000 of them. This isn't like 5 people. It's 1,000 people. 1,000 people are missing. They were putting people in a cage, punishing them, leaving them out in the elements. They were making them like eat out of fucking dog bowls on the ground. I mean, this isn't like, oh, they're in.
And the last prison. Real reporting from the last real oversight reporting for ICE and these concentration camps was in 2025. the mechanism for those reportings has been taken apart. And so groups like Core Civic, which run multiple detention centers around the country, to including California,
Lots of them. Yep.
there's a lot of them. And these private companies
Yes, they
are the ones that manage their own reporting. And so since I think it was 1986 or something, I think it was, they've been doing like between 1986 or 1984 is when they started doing this tracking. There was tracking of the number of sexual assault or reportings or rape like reportings, and of all of the reportings that they found, it's like 130 something since 1980, mid 1980s. In 40 years, a quarter of them have been since 2025.
Yeah.
Of rape and sexual assault on immigrants from officer, in the direction of officer / agent to immigrant to person in detention.
You know,
a quarter of them have been in a year. And there's no reporting on it because the mechanism for accountability and oversight was dismantled, and it was handed to the owners to self-report. It's just like the body cam shit. This service member who is on the USS Lincoln right now, still not home, is going to come home, and his father is in fucking ICE detention. A sailor. This is one of like 50 plus now times that the military has reported that an active service member's family member has been fucking arrested by ICE and put into a detention facility.
Yeah.
You are asking these people to put their lives on the line. You're asking these people to have a weapon, and then you're going to take their family.
Fuckers.
What do you think is going to happen at some point? What do you think is going to happen, Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth? What do you think is going to happen when a service member breaks because you arrested their wife, their child, their father? Are they going to jump overboard? No, they're not going to come home because there's going to be fragging incidents.
Yep.
Because a service member is going to shoot themselves because there's nothing to come home to.
Yeah.
The service member is going to shoot their superior officer or their platoon mates because you, as the government who they signed up to work for voluntarily gave their life to the government. Your payment to them is we're going to take your parent and put them in a concentration camp. They're going to hurt somebody else, and it's going to be the government's fault. It is not that service member's fault. When you put someone into a position where there is only one way out, it is your fucking fault that it happened, not theirs.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I don't really, I have very.
I get really emotionally charged about this.
You should, and I'm emotional. So I was just like, I think you're right, and to go, like, I don't really have anything to add. I think you're correct. I just think it's just unbelievable that you would ask someone to be willing to die and then strip their family away from them after having them on a deployment.
While they're deployed.
Yeah.
While they're deployed. They do it while they're not home. And guess what? The USS Abraham Lincoln already had communication problems and issues getting mail. So I bet these service members didn't even find out until it broke the fucking news either.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy is I watch the ships. Okay, so I watch ships come in and out. There's OSINT sources that document when a ship comes into port, leaves port. The oilers and the fucking at sea resupply ships are steaming in and out like fucking crazy. I mean, they're coming in, they're going out. I mean, they're moving what they can. And if they can't supply people with what they have, like that's another issue altogether, right? And on top of that, you're undersupplying them. It's not even like they're getting their fucking food. Women don't have hygiene products. They're service women. They deserve to have the bare minimum so that they can take care of their physical needs. It is ridiculous to me that you would ask somebody to fucking bleed and not have any fucking thing for them and ask them to do their fucking job when you can't even provide them the minimum products they need to comfortably serve without feeling like they're I can't imagine. I cannot imagine. I am just like, these people are so fucking ridiculous. It's and then you see Hakeem Jeffries talking to fucking Kushner. And
Yep.
then on top of all of that, you're like, you're fucking useless. You should be doing everything you can to bring everybody home. All you've done is dick around. There's still Congress. They can still do things. There should be a fucking proposition on the floor every day trying to stop this because of all of the fucking data that I have to talk about, because of what the human cost here. Like, this is torture. We're torturing them. We're putting them on a boat and not feeding them enough. We're not getting them any psychological comfort from their family, from the care packages, from their mail. We're not giving them things they need to handle their periods. I mean, what the fuck?
Basic human hygiene is one of the most important aspects of a war. Basic human hygiene is one of the most important aspects of a war. Because if your service members cannot...
We're integrating Israel into the military?
Yeah, that's part of the defense line budget that's come up quite a few times. We will have to read into that.
That's fucked. Okay, awesome.
We'll have to look into more of that before
I'll have to look into that.
really
I don't want to talk on it just yet, but that's fucking ridiculous. I just threw a Sharpie.
But like, basic human hygiene is so important when you're in a war, because if you are not able to keep clean in any way, in a basic way, people get sick. Service members get sick and die. And then civilians get sick and die because you spread disease. But they don't give a shit. They don't care. This government doesn't care. I dropped a change petition link, and I don't normally drop those. I dropped a change petition link from Angry Male Vet into the chat here on Substack. It is to impeach Hegseth, and then the next step is to prosecute him. He has to be impeached. He's a war criminal. He's committed crimes against humanity, bombed a school full of girls and children. He has bombed boats throughout the Pacific that we have no confirmation whether they are drug dealers or not. They could be the ones being trafficked. The people that we bombed in the Pacific and Caribbean could be the ones who were being trafficked. They also could have just been fishermen. They're unknown persons.
Yep.
But before I get too much more worked up on all of this, Shane, I'm gonna let you take over on some of the numbers and some of the other aspects so that we can dig into more of this, because this all ties together. This is all part of the plan.
Yep. I mean, and in all of this discussion, I think everything we've talked about so far is very relevant, because when we're talking about being able to supply simple things like feminine hygiene products, like clothing, like food, now I want you to consider how much harder it would be to supply things like integrated air missile defense systems, and to replenish those things. And the other big thing is the cancellation of military drills with South Korea and the appeasement of North Korea really bolsters this analysis. This analysis I did myself. And that's kind of an important thing I want to add here. So it might not be perfect. I am confident in that the general information we're going to be seeing here is reliable, and regardless of the actual percentage that I did come up with, I do believe that the spirit of the analysis will hold, and this is a foundational bedrock in terms of how we are going to be able to proceed with our global strategy and what that actually means. So the analysis that we did here, one of them that I've been working on was absolutely started by the deployment of the USS George Washington from its forward deployed position in Japan away from theater. We talked about this last week, but it is the removal of the last carrier that was there. Already the balance of power was really bad with 3 carriers available for them in the Western Pacific. China now has a 3-0 carrier advantage. Now, one might say that the United States has lots of military installations there, Shane. They don't need necessarily all those ships. And you would be correct in saying that they do have lots of military installations. In fact, I assessed 39 of them. And the question in the assessment was, how many of them are capable of defending themselves, particularly when we are drawing down our supply of what is IAMD, Integrated Air Missile Defense. And there's been a lot of conversations around this discussion, particularly Guam being a very important one. But what I want to talk about is the vulnerability and why we might have decided to appease North Korea. Because if there's one thing North Korea is really good at, it's missiles. You know, there's a certain stigma that these other countries are just not capable, that their programs just suck, that they just can't do anything. And I think that's a massive mistake to underappreciate what your what were you going to say, Nick? You're muted.
I am muted, aren't I? I said under counter discount.
Yes, under counter discount. Exactly, right? So we don't want to be doing that because they could be very capable. And that decision strengthens this analysis. And I want to kind of get into this. So I looked at 39 different military installations. And these are the Okinawa satellites, the second island chain, and then the third island chain. Okay, so the way the U.S. strategy has worked in the Western Pacific is basically that you have these 3 island chains, each built out with the different regional allies, Philippines, Japan, South Korea, to essentially contain Chinese expansion. And they do this by having basically 3 island chains close to Taiwan, and then they progressively go back. And this is meant to allow a certain level of depth and time to respond. Now, the troops that were stationed closest to Taiwan were the MEU that was moved first. So that was the QRF for Taiwan. So they are gone. But that's not even really the discussion. When you pull an aircraft carrier out of the group, you pull the entire carrier strike group, right? So that's the accompanying destroyers, quite possibly a cruiser, all those other things. So integrated air missile defense is something like an array. So you can think of it like a grid. You have different components and they're in different places, but they can talk, work together, and effectively engage and take out these threats. Now, the thing that we are seeing in 2026 is that war is best conducted with one-time munitions, that being drones, basically and missiles. We're not seeing a lot of on-the-ground fighting. Ukraine even is less. There is obviously a front line, a running front line, but they're using drones more and more often. You're more likely to run into a drone. They're bombing the shit out of Kiev with missiles. Missiles work. That's kind of what we're seeing here in 2026, is that missiles and one-way attack drones work very well. The Houthis are demonstrating that right now. So the threat is there. So the question is, if that is the premier threat, how are we prepared to deter China that has not used its stockpile at all of anything, that has a entirely fresh, ready to go military? So I want to talk now with all of that context. I want to give you a number, and that first number is pretty bad. So of the 39 installations that we looked at in this Firebrand Project independent analysis, I found that 82.1% lack organic U.S. missile defense. That effectively means that the vast majority of our installations were either dependent on those naval assets that they are pulling away or on a different satellite base. So when we actually look at the region, it's really important that the first thing we would say is that Okinawa in this first island chain is really important. You have these islands that come almost right up to Taiwan. Japan and China have very toxic history. Even their current relations right now are not good. But I want to talk about these satellites, right? So they come right up to Taiwan. They're there to deter, but they're also closest to Chinese standoff missiles, drones, things like that. So all of them are covered essentially by the host's Okinawa-wide Patriot systems. There's a Patriot battery and another PAC-3, another air defense battery. Okay, so you have two there, and that's responsible for MCAS, Futenma, Camp Schwab, Camp Hansen, Camp Courtney, Camp Foster, Camp Kinzer. So those bases are all protected by a single battery, maybe two. I believe that it's a radar that's there as well. So one battery is protecting 6 bases. Now, White Beach Naval Facility, that's entirely dependent on the Okinawa Patriots as well as the naval vessels there. We have the Midway Atoll in the second island chain. No integrated air defense that I was able to confirm. Saipan, none identified as well. Tinian, again, nothing currently has been diverted. Palau, again, only a radar or a sensor is there. There is planned projects on Yap. So the whole second island chain pretty much is exposed. You've got Chuk, Pohnpei. These are all small islands of basically where installations are. The idea is to basically surround China with all of these different bases. So that continues down the list. Diego Garcia, there is a naval presence there and a naval vessel with Aegis, so that will serve as missile defense. So a lot of the intent was always that our naval vessels would provide the air defense for these installations. So the indirect effect is that by drawing down our naval presence in the Western Pacific, we are stripping all of these installations of their integrated air missile defense. This list goes on. And I will go ahead and I'm going to put a whole article out on this, but I will make sure that list is in there. But what I really want to get at here is that number, and particularly we're talking about the first and second island chains, which means that if I'm China, the one thing I do immediately is I hit the batteries in Okinawa. Overwhelming force, take out the Patriot battery. Now the entire first and virtually the majority of the second island chain are dependent on a handful of vessels for the coverage of that entire region. I mean, I don't really know what to do with that. From a tactical perspective, I'm curious of your opinion. I would consider those positions tactically unviable. If you can't protect the personnel on that location from a standoff attack, you need to evacuate that position. Otherwise, you're just sending troops there to die, to sit there as fish in a barrel. I mean, I don't really, and that's kind of where I will kind of take a pause here, and I want your thoughts on all this data, Nick, and everything that we're seeing right now.
Well, we have to remember too, part of the entirety of this process that is going on right now is a regionalization effort, is a hemispherication effort of the world, is specific countries such as the US, China, Russia are working in tandem with each other. Israel as well are working in tandem with each other in various ways to hemispherize the world so that the US is reducing its presence in certain areas. It's going to further then reduce its presence eventually in the Middle East when they decide that they've lost the war and that they're done. We're launching ground operations or potentially launching ground operations soon in Latin America, if we haven't already started, to dominate the Western Hemisphere, as they say. The plan is, this is all part of the Project 2025 plan, and the technocracy plan is to dominate the Americas. And to do that, we must first weaken our positions elsewhere to allow other dictators to take over and just go, oh, but we can't be there because our position is weak, and if we send troops, we'll just be sending them to die.
Yeah, they will.
They'll
really
use that as the
really
reason.
Die.
They will use that as the reason, though, to abandon our allies, is because we are already abandoning our allies.
It's such a paradox to me, because you abandon Taiwan, you lose everything. They lose. That's like it. That's GG. Like, to you, like, good game. That's like, there is no world. The only thing I can think of is they're going to just give up Taiwan in hopes and cross their fingers that China will give them something. But China has no incentive to give them anything. Once they have Taiwan, they can just say, oh, thanks, appreciate that, dude. And then what? And then our, 35% or something of our GDP growth is tech. I mean, we are already in this like death spiral where we create and continue to drive up the energy price, which is solidifying the position of the dollar. People are holding the dollar reserve at a higher amount than previously, because the United States is also using this as a opportunity to take advantage of Europe, sell our reserves to Europe to get leverage over them. This is all very, there's a great deal of benefit to this situation. But again, the benefit is not bolstering things that matter. It's bolstering the things that don't matter, like currencies that are arbitrary and don't actually have a physical impact like a missile does. A missile does a thing. The dollar, whether it goes up or goes down in value, just is a dollar. I am more interested as a person in the thing that does a thing. If I want to get something, you can either give me $1 right now and say I'll have $1 in the future, or I'll say I'll take the fucking water bottle. I'll have the water bottle. I'll drink that right now. I don't know what that dollar is worth, right? And so they're trying to inflate their own economic nightmare. It seems to me, I'm just going to be clear. It seems to me that they're trying to compensate for the loss of their economic leverage by enforcing a blockade that's unenforceable long term, that also exposes their other key. One of the most important policies we've had is stopping Chinese expansion. The Chinese military is approaching a level that is globally dominant. If they can pump out if they can show up with a nuclear powered aircraft carrier and do multiple at the speed they're doing by 2035, I'm concerned.
The one thing that China has the one thing that China is missing in all of this is they have not participated in a war in itself in a very long time. And the one thing that if we were to actually, and this is where competent leadership is really, really important, is the U.S. historically has been really, really hard to fight in any way because we are organized chaos.
Yes.
That's what the military is. And the Chinese specifically have noted this about us, is that they don't want to start a war with the US because they don't know what the fuck we will do next. Because most of us didn't know what the fuck we would do next either until it was happening. Because the US military is organized chaos. They're good at blowing shit up. They're real good at it. We're good at taking over countries. The next steps we're not quite as good at.
Yeah. Finishing.
But China doesn't have the experience. China doesn't have the experience. And it's just like, it's a situation similar to Russia, where Russia didn't really have much war experience either, other than World War II, losing Afghanistan and attacking its own people. But outside of that, there's a reason Russia isn't dominating in Ukraine, is because the Ukrainians push back. Yeah. And because the Ukrainians were the military might of the USSR.
They were the missile systems, they were the tech, they did all of the space. There's a reason they want Ukraine. It's because Ukraine made the USSR. It was the fucking place where all the big brains were. And they lost it because what happens when you have an educated populace, they don't want to be ruled by a fucking dictatorship, and they will go and separate. It's like not, it's really pretty, it makes sense when you look at it that way. And you also have this idea, and this is not to discredit the, and I think the intention is to get Taiwan by basically saying, if you want rare earths at all, you back off and hand us Taiwan, with the November date coming up. But I do think this North Korean cancellation, particularly with North Korea's propensity to launch ballistic missiles over the first island chain, is very over Japan, over that area, is very telling. When we look at this data. And my concern isn't necessarily whether or not China would win or whether China could fight a war, but China, I know for a fact they've got enough people who can sit at a computer, make a calculation, and hit a button to launch a missile. That's my concern. My concern is casualties. My concern is the loss of life. And my concern isn't who wins. It is that war and the cost of war in lives, in people, is something that is just, there's no reason to leave yourself open to this. There's no reason. You consolidate, you back up, but this is what happens when you make rash decisions and you just do and grab what's in front of you because you think it's enough to fix the problem. What we've created by pulling all those systems out of South Korea to replace the THAAD systems they probably blew up, because it's not like the CENTCOM is telling us anything that happened at all. So we have to wonder, I mean, these are big places. Midway, they could just blow up Midway. All they have to do is target one location, not with troops, not with special forces, but with a solid barrage of one-way attack drones with missiles following the exact template that Iran has set and will happily send all of the calculations, all of the strategy, all of that to China free of charge. And they already have that. So it's not necessarily they don't have the fight, but they have the expertise right there to be given to them. Someone is fighting the war they're fighting, and they are very closely tied to Iran. China is selling the propellant. China
owns the surveillance systems that run the country of Iran. Like, Chinese surveillance is what empowers the Iranian government to oppress their people. Like, yeah. I care for the people of Iran.
Me too.
I care for the citizens of Iran who are undergoing the same oppression that we are starting to undergo.
Yeah.
Because They've been under it longer. They're oppressed. Chinese surveillance is what runs Iran. There is a large network between these nations of surveillance for each other and for technological trade, and just like we have, it's a new Warsaw Pact of kinds. We have similar with NATO. But the problem is, and we're exporting the same type of technology, like Palantir is what China, and Flock systems are what China provide to other nations. We want to provide that to other nations too. We export fascism. That is our biggest export, is corporate fascism. That is what we do right now. It's the same thing. We're just seeing it from our own country now, and it's all very strategic. And I want to make sure too that I see this comment a lot, and I want to push back on it, is they're not dumb. The people running our nation right now are not dumb, and we have to stop pretending that they are.
They're short-sighted, but they're not dumb.
No, they're not short-sighted either. All of this is intentional. Dude, they've been running on a 40-year fucking plan to do this. They're not short-sighted. None of these people are short-sighted. Since World War II, since before World War II, we have had Nazis in the U.S. This is not a short-sighted plan. None of this has been short-sighted. Since the fall of the Confederacy, they have been trying to figure out how to reimpose a Confederate nations of America.
Yeah.
They're not short-sighted and they're not dumb. And if we keep treating them, their supporters might be dumb. But the people running the government, the people who are implementing Project 2025, the people who are implementing from the Heritage Foundation to Jared Kushner to Stephen Miller to even Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth is a clown on purpose. But the people who are truly running all of this aren't dumb. They make themselves look dumb, so we underestimate what they're doing and where they're going. All of this is in an effort to establish a technocracy over the Americas. They're pulling back from certain regions so that these things can happen, so that China can expand, so that North Korea can attack, so that the ballistic missile trade between North Korea and China can continue, so that Shahed drones from Iran can continue to flow into Russia. So surveillance systems from China can continue to expand because they want to hemispherize the world so that we aren't dominant outside of the Americas. They're not dumb. And I really, really want to make sure that people start remembering that and stop repeating that they're dumb. Or that they're short-sighted, because it's not short-sighted. They don't care about the short losses. They have a long-term plan to get us where they want to go. And if we continue to call it either short-sighted or dumb, we underestimate what is going to happen.
I think that, I agree with you, but I think I want to add a qualifier or two, and you can push back on me.
Oh, absolutely. I love these conversations where we disagree and agree at the same time.
Yeah, so I think a couple things are true. First, I think you're correct about Project 2025. Secondly, I think you're correct in that their intent is to hemispherize the United States. What I don't think is true is that they anticipated that they would be locked in a war in the Middle East. I think
yes, they did.
Huh?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Dominionism demands that the people of Israel be wiped off the map and that the Jews be consolidated into a single area and then destroyed, because that sparks the Armageddon.
Right. So
they are not short-sighted in any of this. Dominionism, which is American Christian fascism, demands an endless war in the Middle East.
Oh yeah.
If you read the book 1984, it basically tells you what they're doing. That was the preface to what they're doing. Foreign wars where they send our best people to endless foreign wars to kill the Jews. And yes, it starts with killing the Jews. And I'm not saying that's not all of it. That's just part of it. But dominionism demands Armageddon. And their version of Armageddon starts with what Netanyahu is doing. They're doing this on purpose. There's nothing short-sighted. I think they knew they were going to get stuck in this war.
That's where
they didn't care.
I think
they knew, and they don't care.
And I think they were going to initiate and control the oil flow. I think they were going to basically decapitate, install a Shah 2.0, and then use.
No, they just took plans off of a shelf. These weren't their plans. These weren't original plans. These plans to bomb Iran have been around for decades.
Totally.
They just took old plans, used them, and yeah, did they believe, at least some of them? And this is where we have to qualify, like you said. In my opinion, the qualifications do matter. Some of them believed that they could have been out in 2 weeks. Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth specifically. Stephen Miller, on the other hand, probably knew right up front, because he's not dumb. He's incredibly conniving and incredibly intelligent. The entire military-industrial complex, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, those groups, they need this.
Oh, absolutely.
They need this war to happen. They need this never-ending war, because how else are they going to build drones? How else are they going to make the preface for drone technology and surveillance tech in the US to be a thing? Is we need to instigate terror attacks. We need to instigate fear. We need to instigate instability and never-ending wars. They're not dumb. They're not short-sighted. That's where I push back on all of this. I think your analysis is perfectly fine. I think you have a great analysis, and if I didn't think that, I would disagree with you on your analysis of all of this. I just think the idea that any of these folks are short-sighted downplays the severity of what comes next.
Here's where I get stuck, because I do want to agree with you, but there's certain elements to this that I think have to be a result of things not necessarily going as planned. I don't think these people are omniscient. I don't think they've seen the future. I don't think they have calculated every outcome. I don't believe that. I think that people who are greedy, I think that people who have power overestimate their own capacity. It is what makes them.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that people who are in power for the wrong reasons, they create a system of cronyism, which whilst they themselves may have been competent, the people beneath them are loyalists and are not competent. And I think that you can qualify your position as in the beginning. In the beginning, everyone making these decisions was smart. Everyone making these decisions was doing the right thing. But even the best laid plans, to quote you, don't always, like to quote someone in the military, to quote you as well, don't survive first contact, right? So the best laid plans, and we have gone beyond first contact. I think that there's no world where they think that, oh, it's part of 2025 is to reduce our Patriot reserves to 10%, because then we'll get to lose all of our global defense leverage as everyone who needs their Patriots refilled. I don't think that, them getting all of their radars blown up, because if they want to dominate a hemisphere, you need a military that's functional. And what they're doing is going to render us impotent for anything less than ground operations with limited air support, because not that we don't have the planes, but we don't have the parts, and they're putting the tax on the airframes. And they're starting to now write about how the KC-135 fleet is starting to fall apart and what that means for American air power, because we've built our entire military on this pretext that we fly our jets really, really far using these tankers. And they're not actually built to run extended flight time missions. There's a great comment. They are now projecting weakness. I do not believe there is a plan that these people would undertake in which projecting weakness is their decision. If anything, all they want to do is appear powerful. They are narcissists, And I think that the plan was good. I think that the things they did in the beginning is good, but I think that first contact has come and they're making maybe not stupid decisions, but uninformed and the wrong decisions. And the consequences are their intent to abandon the West Pacific was probably true. But the intent was probably not to send the George Washington to Hormuz, but to send it to Colombia. That's what they probably would have preferred, is to have a carrier strike group based in, they did that. They wanted that. They had the Ford there. They really wanted it there. And when they rotated it out and in there, I think that it weakened the entire posture, to your point, that they're pushing for, which is hemispheric domination. They need these assets to do what they want. So that's where I get stuck.
Let me read directly from Project 2025 in the section entitled Missile Defense. Just so we know where what is happening comes from.
Okay.
On page 127, 126 to 127, change U.S. missile defense policy. Historically, the U.S. has chosen to rely solely on deterrence to address the Russian and Chinese ballistic missile threat to the homeland, and to use homeland missile defense only against rogue nations. 1. Abandoning the existing policy of not defending the homeland against Russia and China ballistic missiles, and focus on how to improve defense as the Russian and Chinese missile threats increase at an unprecedented rate. 2. Invest in future advanced missile defense technologies like directed energy or space-based missile defense that could defend against more numerous missile threats. Invest in new track and intercept capabilities. And I just want to make sure that what I just said reads from there. They're abandoning the Pacific theater to invest in homeland missile defense. They want to consolidate. What you said earlier at the beginning of our show, towards the beginning of our show, was really, really big. What they're doing is they're making certain key points indefensible for our service members, where we would have to abandon them to consolidate our missile defense systems to just the homeland. To include Hawaii, probably, because that's part of, but it maybe even not, because that's not part of the homeland. It's an island, not the homeland. So what you're saying, what you're talking about, is part of Project 2025. Do I think that they plan every step very well all the time? And are they going to accomplish all of their steps? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Because the American people still have a lot of say in what's going on.
Correct.
And the American people are pushing back. And we have pushed back in a lot of ways, which is how we've gotten service members return home, which is how we are exposing the lies that are coming out. And I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I just think that
we're talking about different things. I think we're talking about the same thing, but my whole thing is that I think they're both.
I struggle to think that they are doing any of this without a plan in place, because these people have been implementing this plan since the Confederacy.
Yes.
Like, we are coming to the end of their implementation process, and they implemented at over a quarter, if not half, of Project 2025.
Yeah.
And it ends with hemispherication of the Americas.
Yeah. I mean,
and so we're not saying different things. I'm just disagreeing on the short-sightedness side of it, is that they're not very short-sighted. We think they are, because we're at the end where things are happening really fast. And so it looks short-sighted. But I don't believe it is.
Would you say they underestimated I think they underestimated their enemies. I think that for sure. I think they may have had the intelligence, but I think they underestimated what they were going to do. This war, they say it's not happening. It's still happening, by the way. Saudi Arabia and the Houthis.
Oh, it's expanding.
Their conflict is expanding. All of the
Again, I
proxies are
believe as part of all of that, they planned that. They want destabilization and they want chaos because, again, taking it from just the dominionist aspect, the Seven Mountains Mandate, the Christian nationalism aspect that they want to implement, part of the theocracy that they want to, or theonomy that they want to do. And this is where we don't really talk a lot about. The Christian nationalism part of this, the part of white Christian America that wants to start a crusade and a holy war, they need an Armageddon to create dominion over the Americas. And to do that, they have to destabilize and cause a war in the Middle East to destroy Israel. That is part of the plan.
Israel?
Yes.
Israel wants to be destroyed?
Yes. They don't like the Jews.
Who? Iran?
No, Iran absolutely doesn't like Israel. The U.S., the fascist Christian nationalists in America do not care about Jewish people.
Well,
they do not care about it because it's part of their prophecy. It's part where we're seeing it from the outside, where we are not radicalized by the idea of dominionism. Dominionism demands that Israel be wiped off the map. That is part of all of this. They're not short-sighted in this region. This is a war of choice. This war was started by choice. This is what's going on in Gaza. The reason that the Palestinians are being genocided is because it's a war of choice. Is because Israel is turning itself into the enemy on purpose. Because dominionism demands that Armageddon happens. And to do that, they need what's going on in the Middle East to expand, to become worse, so that when we pull out of it, they can wipe them off the map and we won't feel bad. Because we'll have too many other problems to deal with.
Then why would we integrate with Israel's armed forces?
Because we need more money, man. We need to give them money. It's why Arkansas's teachers union just invested in Israeli stock bonds, their retirement fund. The Arkansas reinvested teachers' retirement funds into Israeli bonds. This is happening.
The Arkansas teachers should go on strike for that one. Fuck, man.
They don't really have a union.
They don't have a union?
We can't use, like, barely. Their union, if they even have one, doesn't have any power. What I'm saying is the war, I agree with all of your assessment, except for the fact that this war is on purpose, and I think you agree with me in a lot of that.
We agree. I guess I'm asking questions because I'm trying to understand where you
need to take dominionism into account more, and the need for the start of Armageddon. Like, that is a piece that is very, very important that doesn't ever get talked about. Not by us. We've talked about dominionism before. I've talked about it before, but it doesn't get talked about in terms of why we're doing the things we're doing to cause destabilization, and then we're going to pull out. Because that's what we do.
Yes, we are going to pull out. I think
we're going to cause an unintended pregnancy, and we're going to rape the Middle East, and then we're going to pull out.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with, any of that in the sense. I think I agree. I think that, I try and draw a distinction between like Jews as a whole and Zionists, because I think that like what you're saying is really important. But the whole.
But we draw that distinction. They don't. Dominionists.
That's intentional.
Don't.
That's intentional.
That's intentional.
To insulate their belief within an entire ethnicity, so that we can't say they're like fucked up. What they're doing is wrong, because then you're anti-Semitic. It's an entirely intentional means of doing it. In that sense.
But the reason that Israel is a focal point for so much of this is because Christian nationalism has made it to be the focal point.
Absolutely. 100% agreed. Like that is
And
part of the
dominionism
model.
demands that Israel be destroyed.
Yeah.
To create an Armageddon so that we can then create dominion over man, what is left. And what is left for them would be the hemisphere, the Western hemisphere. That's why there's so much talk of Canada as the 51st state and starting land operations throughout Latin America, even against the Latin American government's wills, or putting more pressure and naval presence back onto the Americas. Like, we're not disagreeing. And again, for anyone in our audience, we're not disagreeing. No. We don't disagree on what's going to happen and what is happening. I just think we are missing nuance in it because we don't see it through their lens.
Qualifiers are very important. Like, it helps us determine what's going on. And like, I think like they do have a plan. I think that in terms of all of the pencil pushing and the directing and whatnot, but every plan is built on assumptions. A great many of their assumptions are not panning out to be true. But that doesn't mean that the assumption and the outcome like you can execute a plan and still not get the outcome you want. And I think that's a really important element here, right? Because I think one of the things people miss is that people are people everywhere. We're all the same. And we all ultimately will try to self-determine what happens. Just like in this country, we're looking at our government and we feel that we should change the government, that there's a problem in the government, that we are going to vote to remove this government. And the same is true everywhere else. Your plans being dependent on, there's only so much propaganda, CIA, like they can topple every government in Latin America. They don't topple the people who live there. It's not like everyone overnight changes their mind and wants to be a fucking fascist. That's not how it works. But for somebody who's entirely detached from reality, which they are in an ivory tower, they are up in the clouds, they don't cook. If they had to fucking change their faucet, they couldn't do it. God forbid, you could give them a fucking spackle and a mudding tool, and they wouldn't know how to fucking fix the nail hole in their wall. They are incompetent in the ways of being a human being. They are good at this. They are good at looking at this complex system that they have built of economic levers and global coercion underneath the Epstein network and pulling on those. But that is you're only interacting with the state. The state is not the people. The state is the government. And this is where they fail in that sense, is we are missing the point, especially in geopolitics. It's very easy to treat China as China. China is not Xi Jinping. China has millions and millions of people, hundreds of millions of people. I mean, it is a country full of human beings, and not every one of them is having a good time. Many of them are not. They live under surveillance. A great many people are in fear. The same is true in Iran. I mean, the war if they're dependent on this war going on forever, the people of Iran have been resisting the whole time. Iran had to gun down 30,000 of its youth, weeks before this all started, because people were so discontent. Things are getting worse. There's fuel queues in Iran all over. This doesn't mean that we can sustain our blockade, but it also means that there's pressure there. It means that they are smart on paper. You could call them real good pencil pushers. Jared Kushner knows how to fucking get a real estate deal across straight lines and smuggle all that Saudi money in and buy up our video game companies, because that's what they want. They want to control esports. They fucking can do that in their sleep. Now, being able to diffuse a angry populace because you overthrew their government and cut their fucking public transport subsidies, and now they don't have running water. No, you can't do that from your fucking cushy couch in Mar-a-Lago with the 13-year-old on your lap. Doesn't work like that. So that's where it's everything can be true at once. They can be going about this, but the reality is we ourselves as people eventually will resist these states. The people in Russia will eventually be like, over 500,000 people are dead. Husbands, daughters, sons, they'll get there if they keep doing this. There's already over 1 million wounded. That was at the beginning of the year. So you better believe, and with Ukraine tapping like 9 out of 10 being dead instead of wounded in some of these engagements, right? Like that's going up. Eventually they'll get fucking tired of it and they'll throw Putin out. He will die. He will fall out of his own skyscraper. You fucking wait for it. He will. Same with Xi Jinping. Enough suffering will catch up. And it might not be for a while with Xi, but eventually it will catch up with him. Wronging people, making them suffer has consequences. And what they're trying to do in Latin America will certainly result in, the Latin America isn't going to fucking take it. I've been there. I've been to so many of these countries. These people have more fucking backbone than we ever have. Find an American. They have backbone. They have work ethic. They care about their country and their people. And these fucking billionaire plants don't. It won't work. In that sense, the plan will work on paper. But that's my argument. It's been my argument through 2025. It's been my argument into 2026. The paper reality is fucking busted because they broke it on purpose. And in doing so, they stopped themselves from being able to execute the plans they drew on paper. And that is tangible. That's realistic, because even if you want to dominate a hemisphere, you need parts. And those parts we can't make because China is stopping us from making them. That's a fact. That every time we send a rifle and arm a soldier and it jams and it breaks, or we need to make a new bullet and we don't have antimony for the primer, which we haven't for over a year, we're going to go and shoot all our M4 rounds. Guess what? We need to fucking replace those, like we need to do all these things. And this is where we have this dichotomy. It's like it's paradoxical, because what you're saying is absolutely true, but what I'm saying is absolutely true. And so we have to hold those two things together. And when we layer them, it's the plan works on paper. The plan they're executing is technically working, but that's the surface layer we're observing. The underlying layer is lagging so far behind that it's running on basically air. And so that's where the appearance of success is very real. The underpinning reality, that is the dirt in the ground, that is the missiles they need to make, that is the parts they need, that's to arm. Okay, so you want to dominate the hemisphere, you're going to need to fucking enlist a lot of people. You're going to need to arm them. They're all going to need equipment. NVGs, can they make those? Nope. They all need FPV drones. We put hundreds of billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars into these drones. They can't build them. You can say, like, people are cutting down flock cameras with a fucking skill saw and they're not going back up, because it's not like they fucking have warehouses full of this shit. They aren't going to just keep putting them up to have them cut down, because they can't make them, because you need fucking silver and refined rare earths and all of this stuff. Every single Latin American country I went to had a revolution in like the last 100 fucking years. Like, these guys, this is not their first rodeo, and they'll do it again. So that's kind of, I would say, the qualifier I want to add is both can be true, and I believe both are true.
Yes, and that's the thing, is we need to keep multiple things true in our minds at once, because the appearance of strength is just that, is an appearance. But the moves that they're making are intentional. Like, the projection of strength is what we're doing while we're making moves to delegitimize ourselves and make ourselves weaker. And at the same time, we're not going to get good reporting from agencies outside of people doing open source. Even like, I know we're at our hour and a half mark, so I'm going to close it out a little bit.
I don't have anything right now.
One of the more recent things that just happened is the Stars and Stripes news outlet, their editor-in-chief just got fired. One of their Middle East reporters got fired, and somebody else, they had 3 firings like this weekend because they're independently reporting on what's going on. And they're trying their best to be a neutral news source that isn't based because they're for the service members. They're supposed to provide them neutral, well-informed sourcing and reporting so that they know what's going on. Well, the Pentagon fired them.
Yep.
And and even before all of that, the Pentagon removed most of the journalists and the reporters from the Pentagon so that they can't report on these things, because we would know more about what's actually going on if reporters were still allowed in the room to ask Pete Hegseth questions. There's a reason they don't go and do news briefings like this or ask or have reporters actually talk to them, because they don't want us to be able to put together all of the things that are going on. They don't want us to remember that places like the base Diego Garcia, which you mentioned earlier, in the
Indian Ocean,
isn't owned by the U.S. either. The UK owns that, and they're letting us use it. And the UK is in the midst of handing that back to the local government, who doesn't really want us there either. But all of our coastline refueling and supply stations are no longer safe because the war in that region has expanded on purpose, and that's part of like the military integration with Israel and providing more direct support to Israel, part of Project 2025, attempting to create partnerships with Israel, Egypt, and some of our regional allies on the Arabian Peninsula, so that we are less needed, is part of the plan. It's to destabilize, force them into a coalition so that we can leave, so that we can then dominate the Americas, because that's the end goal. That's the goal. J.D. Vance has said it more than once. He's an isolationist. Yep. He is a strict isolationist, but isolation to them means the hemisphere of North and South America.
Yep.
And that's what they want.
Yep.
That's what they want in the end. And we have to keep talking about it. We're going to continue to talk about it next week, because we always do. We've been reporting on this for the last few weeks, and we're going to keep reporting on this.
I hope this has been helpful for you guys.
I hope this is useful.
Yeah.
And I hope us pulling segments. I've been looking through Project 2025 while we're going. There are 57 mentions of Iran in there. There's a section specifically about Iran, and then followed right after it is about Venezuela. The 2 sections, the wars that we started, the wars of choice that we started. We invaded Venezuela or we didn't invade, but we kind of did. We took their leader, and we started a war in Iran. Those are the 2 linking things that they called out that needed to happen. Yeah. And they're happening, and we have to continue to talk about it.
Yeah, they'll happen, and there will be consequences. It's really that
simple.
There will be consequences.
There will be consequences. But there will only be consequences if we talk about it, and then act on it. And we have to elect people who are going to act on it. That's why primaries are important. Primaries are still happening in places. That's why we're allowed to talk primary talk. But once all the primaries are done and we are up to real elections, I'm not going to be attacking Democrats in the way that I normally would, except for some of the corporatists like Hakeem Jeffries, who's a piece of shit, who shouldn't be meeting with Jared Kushner, who is not part of the U.S. government, who is doing diplomacy on behalf of the U.S. government, but has not been congressionally approved to do that diplomacy. That makes him a foreign agent. He's illegally representing the U.S. as a foreign agent, and he needs to be charged.
Yeah.
No, and he can be charged. That's the thing. The one thing that we can agree on isn't that they're dumb. It's not, at least I hope, is that they're not dumb. They're not short-sighted. They might be incompetent, and incompetence is where we will get them. It's not dumb. It's just incompetence. Jared Kushner is flagrantly breaking the law because he doesn't think that he will ever be held accountable for it.
Don't
But
even
guess
get me
what?
started on
It
Jared
will.
Kushner. He's the worst.
Oh, poor
Fucking-
Jared. Poor Jared and Ivanka lookalike Natalie, whatever her last name is, Donald Trump's butt wipe. Gross.
He's just Ivanka's little bitch. Like that's all it is, right? Like he's just another pawn.
No,
Like,
he's the testicle that Ivanka beats on.
yeah, exactly. She's like, I'm gonna send my testicle to the Middle East, and he's gonna do his.
Because she's the real power in that family, not him.
Absolutely,
Not him.
absolutely.
But anyway,
But who's the power in civil engagement and pushing back on these things and building a better country? Banner and Backbone. So you know what you should do? You should subscribe to Banner and Backbone. That's what I think. It's a great way to start.
yeah, come subscribe. Come subscribe for free. Come be a paid subscriber if you can. But come subscribe for free. Like, share, and restack. If you're here with us right now, hit the like button, hit the heart button. If you're on Substack, hit the subscribe button in the top left corner. Subscribe to Banner and Backbone, Shane, and myself all at the same time. It's free.
It's pretty easy.
It's free.
Bing, bing, bing.
It's easy. And it's your first step to getting engaged. And getting engaged is what you really need to be right now. You need to be engaged. You need to be engaged every day. You don't need to be consuming news every day. You don't need to be consuming drivel. You need to be engaged because you need to be effective. Because we are fighting against a group that has been planning their actions since the Confederacy. And we don't have a plan. At least not one that's visible. So we are playing catch up on 100+ years right now. We're playing catch up on a 40-year plan that's culminated into the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025. And we need to fight that, and we need to continue to talk about how it's all linked together. Like Shane and I like to say, is it's all linked together. It's all together. It comes back together. And part of that plan was to start these endless wars and keep us unengaged from civics. Unengaged by making it so that civics seemed hard. Civics seemed impossible to get into. Well, guess what? Civically minded people understand when their government is doing right and wrong, and they call it out. Being effective is what we need. And so come support Banner and Backbone for free or paid if you can. Whatever. Doesn't really matter. Just come support Banner and Backbone. Spread the word. Share the stuff. And then when you're done supporting Banner and Backbone, this guy down here, Shane Yirak, independent analyst over at the Firebrand Project, is a fucking hero. He is doing really good work. He is putting together really detailed analysis. He is putting in really hard work. Come subscribe to him. Go support the efforts he's doing, because the work he's doing, not only is he putting in hard work, he's putting in good work, and he's giving good results. And so please come support Shane and everything that he's doing over at the Firebrand Project. We've been friends for over a year now, and I am so glad that I have met you, brother. And I cannot say enough good things about you, dude. So, my friends, please come support him. He's a young man doing the right thing, rejecting the bullshit and the fascism and the Christian nationalism and the hate to try and make America a better place.
Yeah, man. I just I love people, man. I love people. I think people are good everywhere. People can be bad, but it's only ever really for power. I think the people who suffer, we're all the same. I don't believe that skin color or your appearance, your disability. I don't believe in that shit. Maybe it's because I'm very lucky. I've traveled. I've seen people all over the world, and we are all the fucking same. Doesn't matter what continent you're on. And so my passion for the truth is only grown in doing this. Every piece I put out is rigorously sourced. There's less of them, but they're fucking, like Nick said. I mean, I've grown my skills. I've gotten a lot better, and the results are here. We're talking about them. These are things that I was talking about months ago. And the readers from the Firebrand Project, you guys aren't surprised. You guys are engaged in a way that you can't be engaged if you weren't thinking about these things before. So, thank you for all of that. If you guys can support my work, I spent last week a ton of analysis. I've got some really good stuff. I'm working on my basically my thesis, my hypothesis for what the end of 2026 is going to look like. We've got over half a year of data, and I think I can draw some interesting conclusions, and I'll be sharing them with you guys this week. So make sure you subscribe at minimum as a free subscriber so you get that email when that article comes out. And I've got another great article about how the impact of Chinese expansion and rare earths is affecting Africa that will be coming out here very shortly as well. So that is what I got for you, and I really hope to see you guys supporting, whether that's free, paid, or making a donation as well. All of those things help me out. Yeah, let me hype up Nick a little bit. So, as I've had the pleasure of being friends with Nick for well over a year now, and it is something that I have always been. I like to. I love to talk to Nick. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's kind. I think he's badass. And I think that he believes in the right things, and that's what he does at Sick of This Shit. His advocacy for people with disabilities, for intelligent masculinity, his love of art, music, poetry, and encouraging us to be engaged and empathetic, and drive the dialogue in the right direction is something that is so essential right now. And Nick does it tirelessly, and he does it visibly, and that also comes at a cost. I did lives a lot for a while, and it was super exhausting. So let me tell you, sitting in front of a camera is tiring, and that is something that he does, and he makes that sacrifice for us all every day. So go and support him, his work. Sick of This Shit, because it is making a difference. It's changing that discussion, and be part of that.
Thanks, man. Well, I did it, and it's intentional. What I'm doing is because politics is downstream from culture, and we are losing, or have been losing, the cultural dialogue and the cultural discussion because we have been letting it go. We let spaces be empty from us. We abandoned masculinity. We abandoned teaching boys how to be good men. We abandoned teaching boys and little girls and everyone in between how to be human and just how to be decent. We let that space go. And so we need to recapture it. And we don't talk about disabilities enough. We don't talk about chronic illness enough. It's invisible. And we need to talk about them, and we need to make space for them because they are so important, because over 50% of the population is disabled in some way.
Yeah.
And it is one of the only categories in the world that you can join at any point in time in your life. You too can become disabled. Whether you're part of the community or not is a different answer. But you can become disabled very easily.
Support disabled people, even if you're not disabled.
And you can support because it's the right fucking thing to do, and because it benefits you too. Access and equitability, accessibility and equitability help everybody, and making visible the invisible is something that's really important to me because I am invisibly disabled. I am a disabled veteran. I'm 100% disabled. This hurts my body to do this. And I'm doing more in-person work. And your support is how I get there, is how I do these things, is how I get to be able to get into the room and talk to people who are actually making change and making real decisions, or help influence candidates and get people on the record saying that they care about us as people, because that's really what we need. We need to win culture by defining what our culture actually is, and then showing up and doing it and proving that culture over and over again. So that's what Sick of This Shit Publications is. And that's what I'm trying to do there. That's what we're trying to do here on the civic side and with the Palantalk, with the Anti-Fascist Book Club, is educate, is give people knowledge so that they're armed to be able to talk about things, because knowledge is power, but effective knowledge is real power.
Yeah.
You can be knowledgeable all you want, but if you're not using that power intelligently, accurately, and effectively, you're just wasting it.
If you have knowledge, apply it. If you don't, it's just knowledge.
Yeah. And so, final call to action, the only call to action I have today for the Banner and Backbone side, for the Sick of This Shit Publication side, for the Firebrand Project side, is go talk to people about the candidates who are running for office in your area. Go talk to them about the ideas that are going on that we're talking about. Go talk to somebody and build your community stronger, because the stronger our local communities are, the more we can push back and the easier it will be to overthrow and topple this type of fascistic government.
Yeah.
That's the only way we do it. Democracy is community at scale, and we need to start making community local before it can go to scale. So let's start doing that, y'all, because here on Palantalk, we like to talk tech.
No fascism.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.